Ash was in the Pokémon Center recovering his Pokémon, when he received a message from Mr. Fuji. It read, "Ash, I would like to thank you for your help in Lavender Town. It meant so much to me, how you rescued the Cubone and me from Team Rocket. I have sent something to you that will come in handy. The Pokeflute will wake any sleeping Pokémon, whether in battle or during your journey. I have also placed a lesson book in order for you to learn how to play the instrument. It helped me during the journey and I want to help you on your journey. I have also placed 2 moonstones to you. I found some of them on and I figured you might need 2 of them. If you need an extra one, let me know. Sincerely, Mr. Kenta Fuji." Ash opened his email, and noticed the Pokeball's teleport device activating. Once it stopped glowing for a moment, a simple Pokeball was there. He grabbed it and opened it. The Pokeflute was in the ground, along with 2 moonstones. He smiled widely and knew who would want them. He made an immediate transfer for 2 Pokémon. He then took both Pokémon out. "Hey guys, I managed to obtain these moonstones. I wanted to see if you guys wanted to evolve into your last forms. That is if you want to." Nidorino looked at the moonstone and felt strong power from it. He knew how much power exists within that small stone. He desired it and went over to touch it. He began to grow taller and bulkier than before. Ash was in awe at what he was seeing as some of the trainers were watching this moment as well. When the light died down, what stood was a 4 feet 7 Pokémon with a large spiky horn on the nose, with large muscle and with a near mean look. Ash then took out the Pokédex. Name: Nidoking. Gender: male. Pokémon type: Drill Pokémon. Summary: Nidoking's thick tail packs enormously destructive power. With one swing, it can topple a metal transmission tower. Once this Pokémon goes on a rampage, there is no stopping it. Move set: Toxic Sludge, Double Kick, Thrash, Body Slam. Ash for once was stunned. He had a Nidoking. He always wondered what it would be like to have one, and now he does. Then he gave a big whoop and hugged the Pokémon. Nidoking felt strong and was happy for himself also, being strong and unstoppable. Once Ash separated, he went over to his Clefairy, who didn't hesitate and touched the moonstone. Her body was glowing and grew taller, along with her tail star growing longer and elegant. Once the glowing stopped, Ash was in awe. She was taller than before, her starred tail grew, her body lost the obtuse look and looks a little slender. She was jumping for joy when she felt strong and taller. She went over to hug Ash and cuddle him for what he has done. Ash's Pokédex read on. Name: Clefable. Gender: female. Pokémon type: Fairy Pokémon. Summary: said to live in quiet, remote mountains, this type of fairy has a strong aversion to being seen. Move set: Metronome, Double Slap, Bubble Beam, Take Down. This is great guys, Ash said excitedly. Now let's head toward Route 20 for more training. They nodded and returned to his Pokeball. Ash walked on, as Pikachu was in his shoulder and Sylveon was walking alongside. They were near the area, where they were going to train, when Ash stopped, along with his Pokémon. He couldn't believe his luck. A large, obese, sleepy Pokémon was blocking the road. He seemed happy from his expression and his snoring was as loud as it comes by. Snorlax. I am going to catch it. He then took out his great ball to catch it. He tossed it. When it touched, he was taken inside of the ball and it shook once, and he escaped. He was still sleeping. Drat. He whispered, must weaken it then. He took out Clefable for the fight. Clefable, Bubble Beam. She nodded and released bubbles that was heading toward the sleeping Pokémon. It did do some damage and it awakened the Pokémon in anger. He then launched himself up in the air, ready to crush the Pokémon. Clefable, dodge the body slam and go for a double slap. Clefable moved out of the way, and heard a hard thud. Then she jumped right at his face and gave him 2 hard smacks. The Pokémon then delivered a hard punch, sending the fairy Pokémon flying a few feet and landed on the ground on her back. She got up and was ready to fight some more. Clefable, use takedown. She launched herself and tackled the larger Pokémon, while she winced herself from the attack. The sleepy Pokémon began to sleep and his body began to recover from the last attacks. Oh great! Clefable, use Bubble Beam attack again. She launched another set of bubbles and was a hard hit in the stomach of Snorlax. He awoke immediately and went to launch himself for another punch. Clefable, metronome. She moved her fingers left and right, left and right. Then she glowed and launched herself toward her opponent and exploded. Ash's eyes widened that she did a self-destruction against Snorlax. She was knocked out, but he was still standing, though battered and weak. He then went to sleep to recover. Returned Clefable. He returned to her and was impressed how the fight went. He then took out another Pokeball. Go Primeape. The large pig monkey Pokémon prepared herself for a fight. Primeape, Mega Kick. Her leg glowed and gave a harsh to the Pokémon, waking him up at the process. The large Pokémon launched himself in the air and was going to crush her. Primeape, Low Kick. She dodged the body slam and did a low sweep kick that left Snorlax groan in pain from the super effective move. His fist glowed and went for a punch. Primeape, brace yourself for the attack and absorb it. She nodded, knowing what he was asking for. She felt the punch, but was still standing. Then launched himself in the air, and slammed him hard. Ash winced, but knew she was ready to release the attack. He rolled over and went to sleep. Primeape, release your bide. She began to glow and launched her attack and it managed to give great damage toward the Pokémon itself. The Pokémon was still asleep. Mega Kick. She nodded and sent another harsh kick in the stomach, another heavy damage. The Pokémon woke up, feeling the effects of the attacks. Then he went for another punch. Returned Primeape. He returned to her, not risking another attack. Pikachu, let's finish this. He nodded and went over to fight off against the larger Pokémon. He began to roll toward him and launched himself for another slam attack. Pikachu, dodge it with quick attack and give him a shock wave attack. He quickly dodged it and delivered a strong electrical attack, in consecutive waves. The Pokémon groaned in pain and tried to sleep again. He wasn't able to, as he felt his body immobile and small sparks of electricity were crackling in his body. Perfect. He took another great ball out and threw it. The ball hit Snorlax and went inside. Then it moved once, twice, the third time, and then it stopped. It gave a ding indicating a success. Ash caught a Snorlax. He was in shock how fast it was the attack and the catch. He then whooped in joy of his catch. This one was his monumental one, considering the last time was luck. This time it was hard work. I caught a Snorlax. Suddenly, he was tackled by Pikachu and was happy also. Saffron City, sun was setting. The city itself is the center of Kanto, where it was well known for its mass producing of Pokeballs to other items. Sylph Company standing tall and proud is the heart of all economic trade that keeps Kanto going. The foreside of the city that is guarded by the borders from different cities and routes. One of the guards, sitting in a chair, reading a magazine. He didn't felt the harsh hit in the back of the head, nor noticed a number of rockets bringing in equipment and one of them dressed up as the guard. Celadon door is caught, the man said. Cerulean door is caught, another man radioed. Lavender door is caught, another man said. Vermilion door is caught, another said. The police were giving their routine patrol, in 9th Street. 2 people were in front of the driveway that stopped them. They got out, wondering what was going on, when they were electrocuted and knocking them out. The police station was running normally, when a black ball that is shaped of a Pokeball was rolling in the middle of the first floor, with the same thing in the other 3 floors. Then a large flash stunned the officers in present and immediately were subdued by Team Rocket. Near the Saffron Gym, a number of Team Rocket moved the equipment outside of the perimeter. Then one of the scientists was whistling to himself, typing away. He then finished and said, the word of the day, stay. He pressed the enter button and a large dark wave managed to hit the gym. Inside of the gym, a number of psychic trainers were stunned, as the gym leader was on her knees, feeling excruciating pain. Some of the rockets stood in the other gym, ready for anything with their drowsies and Mr. Mimes. A number of rockets rushed immediately in the building, taking down the guards, and the leader signaled them outside and said, no one leaves. More Rocket members began to go toward floor to floor, with their batons and Pokémon out. As some of them tried to escape, some scientists stopped them. The employers were in disbelief as some of them took off their jacket and placed a pin or on their shirt showing their allegiance. Giovanni was making some copies in the room when he turned around and noticed some few silhouettes outside of the door. He heard a muffle of screams to some of them shouting at them. He went closer toward the door when he heard, "This is Unit 5. Fourth floor is secured, boss." He raised his eyebrow and then immediately hid in one of them desks. When someone entered, he took a peek and was stunned to see Team Rocket. He went to his cell phone to text someone when he saw he had no signal. In the last floor, the CEO and his assistant were discussing about a project when the doors broke down as 3 of the guards took out their batons. They charged forward when all 3 of them were hit with stun guns, leaving them stunned. The CEO is on his chair in disbelief in seeing Team Rocket invading. He thought he was in some sort of nightmare. Bad memories were resurfacing in his memory. Then he saw a person with a tribal mask with various red, yellow, white, and black color designs, wearing a long cloak and with small slits in the eyes. The person walked confidently and then on the chair. "So Mr. Lancaster, we meet once more," a distorted voice said. "I don't know why you are here, but we won't give in to your demands again. Oh, you have no power this time. The police are subdued, the guards are in watch, your gym leader is being tortured, and I have taken over this place." The boss pointed out, "You are in no position to say anything. The last time we met, you were the secretary in this building, until years later, you took over. The last time, it was the experimented Master Ball." Then the person snapped its finger and one of them brought a luggage. The Rocket opened it, and a bottle of whiskey was there, along with a glass on the side. The boss was served and the slit in the mouth allowed the leader to take a simple drink. "Good taste, after 10 years. Why are you here, monster?" Then the boss placed the drink in the table. "Now I am here this time for you to mass produce a good number of Master Balls, along with completing project, stun. Giving the weapon to me." The CEO was gritting his teeth when he said, "It isn't ready." "Oh, believe me, you will finish it and you will surrender it," said the boss, then stood and said, "I am Saffron City and I will get what I want, otherwise we will begin to deal with undesirables in the way. So I suggest you begin to work on it." The CEO pressed a button and said, "People in the research and development, proceed to produce Master Ball and finish project, stun. I knew you see it my way." The boss chuckled. Ash returned to the Pokémon Center in Celadon City, and set up a team of 6 that will prepare him for a match against the 5th gym leader. He began to plan out a number of possibilities and other scenarios playing in his mind. He made the choice of going at night, to check out any more Pokémon and stay up for once. He grabbed his bike and began to pedal out of the city and on the road again. The cloudy sky darkened the road a little, but thanks to the lamp lights turning on, he was able to see the road. He was thankful enough that it didn't rain as the cool air made it easy for him to keep biking. It helped wearing a black hoodie, and black jeans still maintained a good pace. Thus far, he hasn't found any Pokémon out in the night time. He sighed and pondered about Serena. He pondered what happened to her. What did Team Rocket did to her? Is she also one of the only ones that is controlled, just like her? He shrugged his mind as Ash looked at his Pikachu sleeping peacefully in his basket. He smiled softly. How much different things are this time. He then saw a sign that said, "Entering Saffron City." He began to head downhill, and was slowing down a little. He noticed a building which said, "Toll Building, Inspection Required." He stopped the bike and got off. He whispered, "Pikachu, wake up." The mouse Pokémon stirred and rubbed his eyes. He looked at his friend and was ready to roll. He jumped into his trainer's shoulder. Then Ash walked toward the building, with him holding the bike close to him. He was opening the door slowly, when he heard a familiar distorted voice. "How is Celadon?" "We are doing well, boss. A few people, but turned them away for under watch." "Excellent, we will keep in rotation on status every 4 hours." "Yes, boss." Out. Ash recognized that distorted voice from Celadon. The Rocket Boss. He walked back a few paces and closed the door carefully. The young trainer realized how Team Rocket took over a city. He began to see what ways he could sneak in to stop the leader. He needed help though. He walked away from the building and took out his Pokédex. He also took out a card and then made the call. Officer Jenny. Jenny, it's me Ash. It was a small pause, but then replied, oh wow, Ash. This is a surprise. Yes, but I need your help. I know this is hard to believe, but hear me out. Okay, go ahead. Team Rocket took over Saffron City. She was silent. Ash continued, I know this is hard to believe, but a conversation occurred between the boss of Team Rocket and one of the henchmen talked over the radio. I need your help, this isn't a lie. Please. The silence was deafening for a whole minute. Until she spoke, I will bring 3 officers on my own unit to help you out, I will tag along. Ash sighed in relief, thanks you, meet me in the booth building in the Celadon area. Okay, stay put, we will be there in 10 minutes. Okay. She hung up and Ash waited. Sylph Company, top floor. You are an insane man. Exclaimed the CEO. Insanity is determined by their actions. I see this as a vision of bringing in the strongest Pokémon and enhancing them with my synthetics. Imagine how stronger they are. How they will be unstoppable. The CEO replied, I heard different. Oh, Ash Ketchum and Lance. The boss tilted the person its head and said, let me tell you something about that rookie trainer and that so-called champion. Ash is nothing more than a hype of a trainer. He will only succeed very little. Lance is also someone who is nothing more than a man who lived his past glory. You will see it soon. He then answered the boss back, you may see it that way, but the young trainer has heart and greatness within him. I guarantee he will stop you and will be the best at what he does. Lance will stop you. He smacked hard on the face by the boss and replied, watch your tongue old man, you may not like what I can do to you. The walkie-talkie spoke, boss, the weapon is halfway. Excellent, and of the master balls. The first one is about to be finished. Good. Let me know when it is finished with both objectives. Yes, boss. Outside of the toll building, 10 minutes later. Ash noticed 2 birds flying. He looked to notice 3 officers and Officer Jenny in 2 Pidgeots. They landed and 2 of the officers landed. Instead of uniforms, they wore civilian clothing, as Jenny herself dressed herself with jeans and a teal coat. They came up to Ash, as Jenny hugged Ash and said, good to see you. Likewise. So we have to make this swift. She then took out a large rolled-up paper. She unrolled it, showing the map of Saffron City. She continued, okay, we have to work this on clockwork. I would assume that the police station has been disabled, the gym leader in lockdown somehow, and the city in curfew. He nodded and said, they will communicate every 4 hours each post. Right now it's, Ash checked on his watch, 8:30 p.m. We have to move in fast. Leave on your officers here as the Rocket member, while we go inside and free the officers. That is the first phase, the next one we have to simultaneously free the gyms and Sylph Company. We have to hit it fast, once we have a unit of officers with us freed. Once she rolled it back up, they nodded in agreement. Ash said, all right, let's begin. 2 of the officers guard the door, as Ash signaled his Pikachu, then Ash whispered, Pikachu, use a small shock to knock out the guard. Pika. He nodded. Carefully opened the door, as he slid in. A small light of blue later, they went in. They found the guard knocked out, and then one of them began to immediately undress him. He changed into the Rocket look and gave thumbs up. The 3 nodded and left the building into Saffron City. Ash was surprised how this city nearly rivaled with various buildings to Celadon City. The difference was most buildings were of business and industrial. Jenny made a gesture to move forward. They jogged quietly into the night, while hiding in the alleys from Team Rockets as they patrolled the city in police uniforms. Jenny would gesture to hide, and could tell it was them from their way of formation and some wearing Rocket uniforms. They reached a street called Hope Avenue, and Jenny whispered, we are near the police station. We will have to move fast and swiftly. They nodded and sneaked toward the police station. Ash sent in his Pikachu to investigate the rocket members. He crawled into the small ventilation that fit him and began to crawl. He crawled and managed to climb up the ventilation from using quick attacks and successions of wall jumps. He reached toward one of the first floors and walked quietly. He then saw a ventilation and noticed how a group of people were centered in the building. He looked closely and noticed that they were tied up, and a few rocket members were chatting. He has seen what he has to see and continued his journey and noticed an upward ventilation and also continuing in the path. He went up and wall jumped. He reached the other floor and noticed another open one. He peered through it and found a lone rocket member speaking through a walkie. He then left and went back toward Ash. The three of them waited for Pikachu's return. He then returned as Ash said, "So how was it?" Pikachu then made a large circle, then made 10 circles and made himself tied up. Then drew 4 more and made a menacing look. Then he drew another big circle with a small one, then made an imitation of him talking on a walkie. "So we have some hostages and the leader speaking on the second floor," said Jenny, "so we have to move swiftly and take them out. So I will head to the second floor and stop the leader, while both of you take out the other guys, got it?" They nodded and carefully entered the door, seeing it was unguarded. They snuck closely as Jenny went up the stairs quietly. Ash and the other officer snuck into the door. They opened it quietly and noticed the people in the center were tied up. One of the rockets stood up, and grabbed a young woman from the leg, dragging her. "Let go," she shouted. "Oh, I promise you, you will ask me not to let go," the rocket said, keeping a leery eye on her. "My goodness, so much clothes hiding that great body of yours." One of the officers angrily shouted, "Let go of my wife." The rocket gave a dark grin. "Even better, I will teach you how to be a real man." Ash couldn't take it. As Ash immediately ran toward the rocket and tackled him. Pikachu shocked 2 of the rockets close by, while the officer knocked the man off before any reaction could be made. Ash and the rocket rolled over for a bit, and finally Ash was on top of him and punched the man hard, knocking him out. Jenny reached toward the second floor as some few doors were in the hallway. She walked toward the first door and opened it. A tied-up officer was in the room. She shushed the man when he wanted to speak. She untied him and untapped his mouth. She then left the room and went to the other door, opening carefully. Nothing. She went toward the next door and opened it carefully. The leader was there. She noticed that he had finished a conversation. As he was getting himself up, she tackled him and managed to knock him out with a hard elbow shot in the head. She got up and tied him up. Then she went downstairs with the walkie in hand, and noticed how some of the officers were up and grabbing some of the rocket uniforms. Ash said, "Well, we have it under control now." Jenny nodded. "Now we need to plan a way to simultaneously save both Sylph Company and the Saffron Gym." "So any plans?" One of the officers said, "We know that they are moving in some counterclockwise formation, from what I heard. They move in the start in 5th Street, then near Clark Avenue, then up into Relic Street and then up near the gym, then back. It is a routine once an hour, and it started once more." Jenny nodded and said, "All right, we have to move now." They nodded, as a number of people left the police station and began their process of freedom. Fighting Gym. "Master Jin, if we don't deal with this problem, we are doomed against Team Rocket," a man wearing a white GI said. The older man, wearing a black GI, stared at the outside of his window with a number of Team Rockets patrolling the city. He knew that some of those rockets carry psychic types. It is a risk he knew existed. However, the safety of these people are needed as Sabrina was paralyzed to do anything. He sighed over how his gym lost respect since Sabrina's gym became stronger and more well-known. His desire to show how fighting types can be disciplined and unique in its own way. And he needed to prove it. "We shall attack in a swift stroke, like a violent wind. We have to free these people from this menace. Or we will fall. It is better for man to fight and go down with honor than be behind these walls and let it be the end of it." A number of his students stood up, and they were ready to fight. "We must strike." A number of them cheered. Inside of Sylph CO. Giovanni noticed only one guard on the outside. He smirked to himself as this will be an easy one. He grabbed the person and knocked out the rocket member. When he did, he noticed it was a young woman. He arched his eyebrow, but knew it was a start. He went outside of the office, while he grabbed an R badge. He looked at himself at the mirror. He sighed to himself, I do look like some guy who is in Team Rocket. He shuddered at that thought of being one. He then began to walk in confidence and looking for any way to find help. The front desk with a lone desk with various television screens, and a lone security was watching toward the screen for anything suspicious. Thus far the boss had controlled the city under watch. As he sat there, he never noticed someone entering, nor being hit in the side of the head. Ash sighed to himself, wondering how violent he has been acting as of late. Then again, he is dealing with Team Rocket at this point. 2 officers were running in there as one of them went into the data bank of the security system and went from camera to camera. It seems we have a larger problem, Ash. The officer said. Ash went over and said, what happened? Team Rocket are creating a large number of master balls in the assembling room, and in another room, a number of scientists are working on some weapon. I can't tell what it is, but we have to stop it. Ash nodded and said, all right, we have to liberate a number of people, and see if they are interested in helping out. They nodded and then said, I will stay here and alert you how many rockets are there, while you guys go in fast. They nodded and went into the next floor. Near the Saffron City gym. A Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan were panting. Their comrades were taken down by a number of psychic types, and only 6 were left. Give it, you can't possibly beat us. One of the rockets said, arrogantly. The leader of the fighting gym stared after a long thought. They had ambushed the rockets and it was working well when they managed to dwindle their numbers. What they never expected was another group of Team Rocket in patrol. What was worse was how they had stronger Pokémon. They fought valiantly, but they were overwhelmed with the psychic-type Pokémons. I will never give up. The leader said as some of his students were willing to go down. Very well then, prepare to be put down for good. Before any attack could be given, a dark ball went flying and managing to hit a Drowsy. The rocket's eyes widened, then more were assaulted by both Pokémon and people. The rocket tried to communicate, but was cut off by a thunder wave from an Electabuzz. Fight back! The rocket shouted and it was an all-out fight. The police officers were fighting off against Team Rocket, while their Pokémon were battling it out. The lead fighting gym leader went to the direction to machine to disable it, until he came across a large Machamp, ready to protect the machine. Inside of Sylph Company, Giovanni knocked another rocket member out, while escorting a number of people out. Thus far, it has been a smooth plan. A number of people volunteered to fight against rockets, while others went into hiding. The ones that fought would go with him and check if it is safe to move forward. He then noticed a security monitor and saw 2 people in hoodies were moving fast and taking down rockets. He looked closer on one of them, a Pikachu on his side. Ash, he simply said. Sir, we need to keep moving, one of the workers said. He nodded and said, we need to head to the assembling room to stop the production of those master balls. They went with him and went into the elevator, pressing the 6th floor. Few floors down on Sylph Company. Ash took out his Nidoking, while the officer took out his Kangaskhan and were fighting off against 2 rocket members with a Machoke and a Tauros. Nidoking, use double kick on Tauros. Kangaskhan, use Mega Punch. The others never had time to call an attack, when their Pokémon were taken out. Then the rockets themselves were out of the fight also. Which floor is the assembly room? Ash communicated the officer. 5th floor. 5 rockets on that room. The officer replied. Thanks, alright let's go. Ash shouted. Both the officer and Ash reached toward the 5th via the staircase. They saw the 5 rocket members were holding their electric batons, while walking around the area. They watched closely, along with their Pokémon. Ash was trying to find some strategy, when he heard. Game over, Team Rocket. He looked where the voice was, and he saw his father along with 4 other employers. They took out their Pokémon and it was a battle royal. Ash then said, let's get them. Ash and the officer took out their Pokémon. The Nidoking used its horn attack on Golbat, while Kangaskhan jumped high enough for a body slam. Ash dodged a downward baton attack from a Team Rocket, but the Team Rocket was hit hard on the side of his head, knocking him out. Ash saw his father did so. "Son, you're going to have to leave this and leave it to us," said Giovanni. "No, Dad. I have to stop the leader of Team Rocket. I know that he is here," Ash replied back. His father knew that his own son won't change his mind. "Very well, head to the 6th floor, you will see a glowing tile. Step on it, and then keep going straight from the room, then another glowing tile will be there. That will take you to the hallway of the CEO room." He nodded, "Thanks, Dad." His father nodded back and shouted, "Go, we can handle this." Ash returned his Nidoking and went up the stairs into the 6th floor and found the glowing tile that his father talked about. The young trainer went into it and felt a pull in his body briefly, then it stopped. He then jogged it toward the next tile and was sent to another room into a hallway. He knew he was close. As he walked more, a smoke appeared out of nowhere in front of him. Once it cleared out, it was Serena. "Serena," Ash said. "You are that trainer that I met in Celadon," replied back Serena in a monotone voice. "Please come with me, I can help you," Ash pleaded. "I am here to stop you from interfering. Look, stop this, please." She took out a Pokeball, as Ash was forced to fight back. Rhyhorn, a large bipedal Pokémon with a drill-like horn, was ready to fight. Bellossom, the flower Pokémon, was prepared for a fight. "Rhyhorn, horn drill," she commanded. Rhyhorn's drill began to whirl and launched himself into Bellossom. "Bellossom, use Vine Whip and swing yourself out of there." Bellossom aimed and fired a vine up on one of the ceiling light and swung out of there. The large Pokémon landed on the ground and was getting up. "Bellossom, Mega Drain." She nodded and tendrils appeared and latched into the larger Pokémon. Then she began to drain his energy. Rhyhorn, use Body Slam. Placing his weight, he slammed the flower Pokémon hard. Yet she was latching on, as she recovered greatly. Rhyhorn was losing consciousness. She then returned Rhyhorn. Then took out another Pokémon. Exeggutor, a large tree two-legged Pokémon, appeared. Ash knew this will not end well. Return Bellossom. He then switched his Pokémon. Nidoking, go. The large purple spiky Pokémon was ready to fight. Exeggutor, Egg Bomb. One of the heads glowed briefly and then launched it toward Nidoking. Nidoking, use Sludge at the attack and at Exeggutor. Nidoking opened his mouth and released a purple substance that managed to melt the bomb, and some of it managed to hit the tree Pokémon. He winced from the pain, but was prepared for more. Exeggutor, Psybeam. He aimed the attack and fired Purple Beam. It was a direct hit for Nidoking and he felt excruciating pain. Ash knew he had to find some way to end this fight. Nidoking, used Double Edge. His body glowed for a moment and went right at his opponent. Serena noticed how tired out her Pokémon was. She then said, "Self-destruct." Ash's eyes widened and the Pokémon was glowing and an explosion was released. When the dust cleared out, both Pokémon were out of the fight. Ash went toward his Pokémon and checked on him. He sighed in relief that his injuries were normal. Serena walked toward her Pokémon and tiled in curiosity. He seemed fine, just out cold. She petted her Pokémon, mimicking Ash. She returned him as she stared at Ash. Ash returned his and looked over to Serena. "You won this time. I was fully ill-prepared with bringing my Pokémon. I used these two just dealing with the invasion." Ash went over and caressed Serena's cheek. "Serena." She backed off and said, "We will meet again." She threw another smoke pellet and disappeared. Ash frowned at how close he was. Serena sighed to herself. She began to see images of them playing around and a kiss she gave to Ash. She pondered more about these recent memories and why it was affecting her. She was better than this. She went through the ventilation system and found the elevator. She reached toward the bottom of the floor and carefully sneaked out, noticing the police officer. Ash could only do is move forward. He is going to corner the boss and demand to release her control. One way or another. The CEO office. The boss was twirling a coin and learned about the police officers in the building, along the outside. The boss knew about it, considering that the boss has a small cameras in different areas. The boss waited for Ash, who is just outside. The boss walked toward the window, staring on the skyline of the city, when the door was slammed open. "The game is over," Ash declared. The boss turned and replied, "You got me. You got me well." As Ash was approaching the boss continued, "I find it interesting how easy you made it up here. I mean, think about it, you feel so confident, as if all of this was a dream." Ash stopped and raised his eyebrow. "I don't know, what are you talking about?" "Oh really, come on. You defeating an organization that is feared, that sound too ridiculous." The leader went over and drank the rest of the wine. "I think it is time you see the truth, boy." Suddenly, he felt exhausted, then his vision was slowly leaving him. Then he was on his knees and he was out. He was breathing hard. He was seeing nothing but darkness. He realized his eyes were closed and began to barely open, yet he felt like he was losing his breath. All he could barely see is a silhouette of a person. The person was shaking and was sobbing. "I am so sorry, Ash," a feminine voice whispered. He tried to say something, anything important. However, his breathing made it difficult and then he felt his eyes become heavy and then it blacked out. Unknown location. He opened his eyes and found a brown-colored ceiling. He got up and felt body aching from his bizarre slumber. He looked around and found a strange room that he doesn't recognize. He then took out his Pokédex and began to contact Professor Oak. The line was dead. He found it odd and he began to continue to try to make any contact, nothing. He tried to use his GPS, and nothing occurred. He tried his map system, he was in an unknown location. He tried his badges and found it odd. 8 badges. He couldn't remember how he got all 8 of them. He shrugged it off and checked his Pokédex count. 649. Impossible. He said to himself. How did he caught all of those Pokémon? He tried to remember how he did it. He tried to remember, but it came out blank strangely. He then checked his Pokémon, he had a 6 full team. He took out all of his Pokémon. He raised his eyebrow. 5 unknowns spiraling around him for a short while as they tried to move around to make some lettering. Once it stopped right in front of him, it said, LEAVE. He felt a bit unnerved with what the message said. He then looked at his last Pokémon and frowned. A Pikachu who looked hurt. Parts of his body had open wounds and gave a weak chaw. He picked him up and went around to find a way out. He kept looking for anything, but only found a small opening hole. He went in and it began to become darker and darker. He kept going more until he felt the ground. It was a pitch black. He couldn't see anything. Suddenly, his Pikachu began to glow and gave a harsh flash. He closed his eyes from the flash. Once that was over, he nearly dropped Pikachu in disbelief in the room. It was blood red everywhere, from the ceiling to the floor. Everywhere. His stomach began to clench and felt sick to the stomach, and those unknowns followed him, giving him that menacing look. He kept moving at the only direction that he can move, forward. He kept walking for some time, when the place light began to dim down, slowly. Over time, it dimmed more until it was nearly pitch black. He noticed a strange sign that was there. He checked it out. It simply said, "Turn back now." He raised his eyebrow again. He found it disturbing sign as the unknown swirled around him. He simply said, "Yes." Then he felt a teleport and felt something in his arms being pulled. Then he screamed in pain as if it were ripped up. He then felt numb from his arms and took a number of breaths. He looked around and noticed he was in a hole. He tried to climb out, but realized what happened to his arms. What happened to my arms? Ash thought. He noticed the unknowns once more and they were shaped differently. They swirled for a moment and then they stood right in front of Ash. It messaged, HEDIED. Ash was in disbelief. Pikachu is dead. He began to cry. Cry for the Pokémon's death, cry for his missing arms. Then he felt another teleport. He was in a red room, and yet, he couldn't walk. He looked down and realized his legs is gone. He pondered what was going on. Then the unknowns returned and swirled for a brief moment. Then it stopped and another message, dying. He was hyperventilate and knew he had to move forward somehow. He was able to, as he was hovering over. He looked around the red room, and found nothing but a hallway. He then saw his mother and father, yet they lack color. He tried talking to them, yet nothing came out of his mouth. He tried talking to them, but nothing. He tried touching them, and when he did it felt cold. He cried, unknowingly blood of tears were coming out of his eyes. He wanted to leave, go home, wherever it was. He moved on, and found a trainer who looked so much like him, but was transparent, with only an outline of his appearance. He threw his Pokeball and out came a Pikachu, yet sad looking. He noticed a Pokeball is thrown and out came a Celebi. He wanted to throw up. This Celebi was missing an eye, an arm, and a leg. It was a shiny one, but brutalized from some unknown purpose. He saw how the fight went on. Pikachu began with Curse. It did something, but it was insignificant to Celebi. Celebi used Perish Song. Ash in some thought knew that the Pokémon was going to take out both of each other. Then Pikachu did Flail, no damage was done. Another note sang, getting near the end. Then Pikachu did Frustration and was hurt greatly that Celebi won't be able to survive another hit. Ash was shocked when Celebi did Split Pain. He pondered how it was possible, then again he wasn't sure about everything that has occurred to him. He heard another note, but hoped it will be over. Pikachu did Mean Look, and it did nothing. He felt sorry for him. Then he heard the last note, in relief that it is over. However, another shock occurred for him, as Pikachu did Destiny Bond. He heard an agonizing cry as Celebi was at the ground, not moving. Pikachu did also. Pokémon died right in front of his eyes from that battle. Then he looked at the trainer, and his eyes widened. He was missing his head and he disappeared. Suddenly he felt another pull. He looked around and he was at his room. His poster of the Pokémon competition to his alarm clock. He was home, but felt something was off. The window showed nothing on the outside. The unknowns make their presence in a sinister look, formed the letters, no more. He also felt as if he was lacking something. He moved on toward the door, looking for someone. And he found nobody. No one was home, just everything was in its place. He began to cry, as he can't remember who lived at the house. It was losing its purpose as his memories were fading away. He needed to keep his sanity left. He made the risk to leave the house. He went through the wall and was able to see nothing but darkness. He kept going as slowly his teenage memories were disappearing. He can't remember how much he kept going nor how he ended up where he was. He then saw a bit of light and a figure. As he approached more, his childhood memory was disappearing. He was closer and closer. He then saw it was himself, but his eyes were lacking any life. He then said, "Goodbye, forever." He disappeared and the last bastion of his memories are gone. He was then in a graveyard. He noticed a tombstone that felt a connection to it. He reached it and it was a tombstone with no name. A picture of himself was there. The unknowns made their last appearance that was given him what his thoughts were, IMDEAD. He didn't know who he was, and he was dead. No one will remember him, nor know what he has done. Forgotten, like everyone else. It was a goodbye for himself. Don't give up until the end. A young girl's voice said. He looked around where it came from and as he did found it. A young girl with honey blonde hair, blue eyes and a confident smile was given toward him. Never give up, she said. Who are you? The young man said. I'm Serena, your best friend. Remember me? He had a blank look. Remember what you promised to me. You will be the very best and find me. A strange memory of him helping the girl from the ground getting up. Saying the words, never give up until the end, echoed in his head. Please, come back to me. Please remember. The young man was trying to focus who he was, but it felt like something was blocking him. Say your name. He is trying to remember hard, but it was difficult. Suddenly a young man with tanned skin, closed eyes, and a confident smile was there. You can do it, he said cheerfully. A name was slowly etching in his mind. Slowly his form was coming. A girl with red hair, cerulean eyes, and again a confident smile was there. We're with you. More people were appearing in his mind. A name finally came to him and said, my name is Ash Ketchum. I am a Pokémon trainer. I am to be the best, like no one ever was. Suddenly he felt strong, confident, and hopeful. He felt that presence trying to squish him and his identity. He began to fight back with his will, and encouragement was heard from these people and he pushed on and on. He finally felt close and he gave a strong push that he pushed it out of it.